shooting dope is so goddamn glamorous. I love podcasts. One day I'll go on one. Some Dopey Podcast because I love heroin. I'm on my way. I'm coming in.
And I'm gonna sing a song for you.
Damn, Chris gonna show you a thing or two.
You'll have some fun now with me and all the gang, learning from each other while we do our thing. Na, 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 gonna have a good time. Hey, hey. Na, 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 gonna have a good time.
Dave and Chris coming at you with music and fun. And if you're not careful, you might learn something before it's done.
Hey, hey, hey!
This episode of Dopey is brought to you by our very good friends at Oro Recovery. Oro is an amazing treatment center located in sunny Southern California, founded by Bob Forrest and his friends Evan, Jared, and Bob. Their mission, a noble one, to help addicts and alcoholics by using amazing things, connection and compassion instead of control. Their team has decades and decades of experience in treating addiction as well as co-occurring mental illness, including severe mental illness, or as we like to say, the dread SMI. They make sure that your detox is as comfortable as possible. I speak to people who go to Oro all the time, and they all say one thing: it was an incredible experience, they were treated well, and they were given tools to get better. They have amenities you wouldn't believe: surfing, equine therapy, the spiritually potentially transformative sweat lodge, sound bath meditation, and so much more. It is in sunny Southern California where it rains very little. If you're fucked and you're willing to go get help, go to ororecovery.com. Get out there. Sunny Southern California is a calling, and so is your recovery. ororecovery.com. This episode of Dopey is also brought to you by our very good friends at Sober Buddy. What is Sober Buddy? It's an app. It's a sober platform. It's so much more, though. And I say that from experience. I do Zooms with the Sober Buddy people every Wednesday, and it's a community. It's a nice bunch of people who want to get sober, who want to stay sober, who want to help each other. Not only do they have 11 Zooms a week, they have kind of a social media style platform where addicts and alcoholics share their experience, strength, and hope and what's happening with them. And it's very supportive and it's very cool. They have a sober tracker. They have challenges. It's very inexpensive. It's like $12 a month. Who knows what you guys spend $12 a month on? And they do a 30-day trial. Please check them out at yoursoberbuddy.com. It's also available at the App Store and the Google Play Store. Check out Sober Buddy. If you sign up, please come to our 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time Zoom every Wednesday. It is super fun and super exciting. This episode of Dopey is also brought to you by our very good friends, Eric and his team at Evolution Accounting and Consulting. Are you a business owner? Do you hate doing paperwork? Do you hate doing payroll? Do you hate all that stuff but love your business? Maybe. That's why Eric invented Evolution Accounting and Consulting. He takes care of taxes. He takes care of payroll so you can focus on the business. And if you use the code Dopey, you save money. And you need to know that Eric is a serious crackhead, but he's in recovery so he can relate to the dopes of the Dopey Nation. If you need an accountant, you go to evolutionaccounting-consulting.com. www.evolutiondashaccounting.com, and Eric will take care of you or his team. So go to www.evolution-accounting.com, use the Dopey promo code, receive special discounts, and thank you. So hello and welcome to another special episode of Dopey, the podcast on drugs, addiction, and dumb shit. And my name is Dave, and I am in New Orleans, Louisiana. It's fucking incredible. I love New Orleans. I was invited down here to attend Jazz Fest and to participate in a sober kickoff to Jazz Fest with our new partners, the Phoenix. The Phoenix is an incredible nonprofit foundation that basically hooks up addicts and alcoholics with fun stuff like pickleball, like getting in shape, like music stuff, art stuff, hikes. It is available for free if you're an addict or you're an alcoholic and you have at least 2 days sober, clean, whatever. You can join up with the Phoenix and you can participate in their events. I was just telling Ray Brown about it, and he's like, that's got to be really expensive to go on one of these fancy hikes with the Phoenix. I said, no, Ray Brown, it's free. Check it out at www.thephoenix.org. Now, today I'm going to be hanging out at Jazz Fest with the Phoenix. Yesterday, they put on the people of the Phoenix and Stand Together and this rehab down here called Imagine Recovery. They're putting me up. I'm in this fancy Airbnb. They put on this very, very special event yesterday. We're going to air, I think, a bit of it next week on Dopey. We're going to air the podcast portion where we did this roundtable discussion with these guys. It was really powerful. And it was really, really, really cool to be invited. It's like it was at this fancy, fancy house. And they did something called a crawfish boil, where I guess they boiled, it looked like tons of crawfish. And this nice older Jewish gentleman, I think me and him were the only Jews in the bunch, which was nice to be different. His name was Keith. He was like, and he's from Alabama. And he's like, David, I'm going to show you how to eat a crawfish. And don't feel bad if I do 20 crawfish to your one. And I said, I don't care, Keith. And he goes, first, you break it in half. Then you suck the juice out of the brain. And then you split the tail and you eat it. And so I split it and I sucked the juice out of the brain and I ate the tail. And they had gumbo and jambalaya. And they had incredible music. This harmonica player, Jason Ricci, who's going to be on the show a bit, he was sick. And they have this, I don't know if you guys know this trombone player from New Orleans called Trombone Shorty. He has a nonprofit and he helps all these kids learn music. And they had a group of like, I'd say 10 kids, trombone players and trumpet players, drummers, and just this sick fucking New Orleans funk second line thing. It was incredible. It was an incredible event. And then we did a little Dopey thing. I was very nervous. And when I was eating the gumbo, thinking, I really shouldn't be eating this gumbo because it's going to drip onto my shirt and and they shot video of it. So I'm like, I shouldn't be eating this gumbo because I know it's going to like stain my shirt and then I have to be this idiot with a stain on my shirt. And as I'm thinking it, of course, I stain my shirt. I spend an hour or so just hyper focused on the stain in my shirt and nervous that what we had to do was going to suck. And it was good. So thank God for that. Big thanks to all those people. I met this guy, Chris O'Shea, very sweet. His partner, Felicia, Jeff Goldring, his wife, Walton. They were all incredibly sweet and ingratiating and kind. It was like fucking out of hand. It's like, every time I've traveled for Dopey, I've gotten a little bit less nervous. And it's just, I'm incredibly, incredibly grateful and excited. And fucking, I feel very fortunate. And yesterday, I went to Went to a 7 a.m. meeting with fucking, it was like one guy there, then another guy showed up, then a woman showed up. It was 4 of us at the meeting. We each shared 3 times, which I've never experienced the triple dip at a meeting, but it was cool. And then I ran into Jeremy Turner, who's going to come on the show in a bit, which was awesome. I never met him in person. And for all of you who don't know who Jeremy Turner is, he is an old school dope who used to send in a lot of stories. He was a Mississippi tugboat sailor, and he was also a Mississippi River steamboat sailor, and he was also a serious meth addict and great friend of the show. And I ran into Up Full Life podcast host B. Getz, who always is down in New Orleans for Jazz Fest. So he's going to pop into the show later as well. And then incredibly, we have world famous, legendary comedian Margaret Cho, who it turns out is this big time Dopey fan. So that was crazy to be able to sit down in person with Margaret Cho in New Jersey. And she loves the show. And you'll hear it. Margaret Cho loves the show. You'll hear her in a bit. I got some emails I want to read first. So, hey, Dave. My name is Celia. I'm a recovering heroin and benzo addict. I have 3.5 years clean. I recently listened to a show where you talked about Benadryl, and taking it every night has been a part of your recovery routine. I related to this so much because I have to be able to sleep. I can't lay there and toss and turn because I will just think about every little thing I did and said while using and overanalyze things. So my solution was to take an over-the-counter sleep aid. In true addict form, I decided 4 a night should do the trick. And then she has a sort of eye-rolling emoji. Hearing that you also take Benadryl makes me feel validated, but when you said you take 1, I knew I wasn't justified. So I started my taper. 1 less Benny each week. They used to call Benzedrine Bennies, but I like Benadryl as Bennies now. This week I am down to none, and I found out that you can indeed withdraw from it, and I am currently doing just that. Scratching the shit out of myself, tossing and turning for the first few nights. Very restless, pretty anxious. It's so crazy to think something as light as allergy medicine can make you feel this way. I'll get through it, though. When I was on the nod, I lived for the itch, so I can't really complain about this too much. And then some sort of tongue emoji. Just thought I'd share this with you. Thank you for all that you do. Stay strong, Dopey Nation, and toodles for Chris. Yeah, fucking, I haven't taken Benadryl in a bit. Maybe I should be taking Benadryl on this trip. Fucking, I've been taking melatonin, and it's not doing the trick. And Linda's sending me these podcasts about how melatonin is bad, and I don't know. I think I might switch back to Benny's tonight. I just need some rest. I need to get some deep sleep. Jazz Fest goes from 11 to 7 during the day, so that means, everyone's like, you got to go to the nighttime shows too. They have shows that go all night. It's like, there's no way. There's no fucking way. So today's show is, it's kind of got a theme, and the theme of today's show, and I guess a theme that we've been dealing with a lot lately, is Kratom or Kratom, however you pronounce it. Today's theme is Kratom and Boofing. And Margaret Cho laid down the Boofing theme, and she wanted to follow up on the Kratom theme because we've been talking about Kratom so much. Jeremy and B also have some serious Kratom stories, and Jeremy has some amazing Boofing tales. I just got a voicemail from Tyler, and Tyler had one of the most quintessential Boofing stories of all. Although it was Boofing grapes, he told the great grapes of ass story months ago. And this is a story, there is no Boofing and there is no Kratom, but what the fuck? Here's Tyler.
What's up, Dave? Tyler here from Colorado once again. I just thought I'd send you another Dopey story. This one is maybe I'm pretty ashamed of it, honestly. But here it goes. It's another story from when I lived in Vegas. This, however, is on the tail end. This probably happened maybe about a week, 10 days before I finally made my way back to Colorado. And it's the story of how I lost my phone. I didn't lose it. It was fucking stolen from me. All right, so here it goes. I was on another one of my famous 5-day benders. And I was fucking driving down the strip in Vegas. And I was just like fucking high as shit. Meth, of course. My DOC. I was high as shit, just like... I needed company too. Like I was so fucking lonely, and I'm like, I was tired of all the dudes on Grindr. I was fucking tired of all of my options, basically. And so I make my way a little off the strip, maybe a couple streets east of the strip. And I can't remember what street I was on, honestly. I can picture it very vividly. But I had my windows down, I had my tunes cranked. Fucking came to where this red light stopped, and there is this really hot guy, standing at the corner. We make eye contact. Light turns green. I'm like, I gotta see what this guy's about. So I fucking flip a bitch. I turn into the gas station, which was on the corner where this guy was standing. He, of course, was watching me flip this bitch, watched me fucking rearrange my entire path because I made eye contact with this dude. I start talking to him as I pull into the gas station. We're talking, he's standing outside. I'm in the driver's seat. We're just talking through the window or whatever. And he's like, "You tweaking, bro?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah, dude. You want to get in and smoke?" And so, I didn't have any shit. He did, luckily, because I'm like, I just offered this dude to smoke and I don't have anything to smoke. And so we smoked his shit. That was literally maybe all I got out of this interaction. After we smoke, we pull into this apartment complex, and it's like fucking 1:30 p.m., like broad ass daylight. I don't have any tinted windows, like absolutely no tint on my windows. He tells me to pull into this apartment complex, and so I do. He tells me to suck his dick. And so I'm like, hell yeah, I'm on meth. Like, you're hot. Like, I just met you. I was like such a rush or whatever. And so like, I'm giving this dude a blowjob. And then like, he finishes whatever. And then like, I pull out my phone to plug it in to crank some tunes. And he was like, "Oh, dude, it's a nice phone. Do you mind if I make a real quick phone call?" So I'm like a fucking idiot. I'm like, "Yeah." And I hand him my phone. And he gets out of the car, and I am immediately sketched by this. So I get out of the car, and then I'm like, "Dude, I gotta do something real quick." And he like has my phone in his hands. He's turning his body so I can't grab my phone. And then he makes a run for it, and my car is like fucking on. And then like I'm like, there's no way this motherfucker is getting away with my phone. And so I'm like running after him. He's like literally hopping like chain link fences. And so I'm like going after him. I haven't had anything to drink in a couple of days. I haven't had anything to eat in a couple of days. No sleep. I'm on like probably day 3 of this bender. And like I am running as fast as I can, yelling like, "Help, help, he has my phone, he has my phone." And literally everybody that was standing around watching this, that's all they did. They just fucking watched. They watched me as I ran after this guy who just stole my phone. And then like he stops, he turns around, he throws a punch, I duck, I try to throw a punch back, I ended up grabbing onto his shirt and like fucking pulling it as hard as I could, and the shirt like ended up ripping, and he just like ran, no shirt. I think I lost a shoe at one point. Like it was a very intense chase, and then I got the dry heaves, and I fucking started dry heaving, and it slowed me down, and he ended up getting away with my phone. And yeah. And so that was actually my catalyst. That was like the moment I realized I have to get the fuck out of Vegas. I cannot hang here anymore. And so, yeah, I ended up putting in an insurance claim for a stolen phone. The new phone I got, I ended up dropping after having it for 2 hours. I dropped it ever so, like, just in the right spot, and the fucking whole screen went dead. And so I was out of a phone. I also had my laptop stolen like 2 weeks before this. Like, bro, I have so much shame about this. I just sucked a guy's dick only to have him steal my phone. Oh man, the things I did on drugs, the things I did for drugs, I'm just like so fucking happy I'm not doing that shit anymore. Today's day 140, clean as a whistle, bro. fucking clean, and it feels so good. I don't have to suck anyone's dick anymore. I legit am no longer a slave to meth. Life is so good, and I take care of my shit now. I don't let people steal my shit anymore. So yeah, Dave, that's another dopey story. I hope you have a fucking great day, man. Love you, bro.
And congratulations, Tyler, on your time. And Tyler gets a pair of socks. He got a pair of socks from Grapes of Ass. He gets another pair of socks now. We have new socks coming in. I'm very excited. So everyone out there, please send in fucked up dopey stories. Try to keep it short. Tyler's was a tiny bit longer than I like, but I love Tyler's stories. So what the fuck? And you send in a voicemail. You record it on the voice memo app on your phone, and you email it to dopeypodcast@gmail.com, or write a story and send it to dopeypodcast@gmail.com. Please leave reviews on iTunes. It makes my father very happy, and he will read the reviews on the show. In other very, very, very relevant news, the Knicks won their first fucking playoff round. I'm on the road, so I don't have hold on, here's the vape knock. The Knicks won the first playoff round. They beat Cleveland 4-1. So fuck Cleveland, and now we're going to play Miami, and it's going to be rough. But I want to congratulate the New York Knicks and all of the Knicks fans around. It's been a long time. This is a great time to be a Knicks fan. I'm incredibly excited. Also, I want to thank everybody who's a Dopey patron. This week on Patreon, we have Jeremy Turner on video. We have me in the fancy Airbnb. I'm going to get some Jazz Fest shit today. So if you're curious to see what New Orleans is like, or you're an old-time fan of the show and you've never kicked into Patreon, now I think should be the time. You just go to www.patreon.com/Dopey Podcast and support the show if you can. If you can't, you don't have to. It's totally understandable. Now, before we get on to Margaret Cho, I want to say that this episode of Dopey is brought to you by our new sponsor, Lucamira. Lucamira is a non-addictive drug, a non-addictive medicine which helps adults with symptoms of opioid withdrawal. So if you're looking for some help kicking opioids, Lucamira might be the thing to do. As we all know, it's not easy to kick opioids, heroin, fentanyl, oxys, Percocet. It sucks. You know what it's like to kick. I know what it's like to kick. Lucamira doesn't completely prevent the symptoms, and it is not a standalone treatment for opioid use disorder, but it can be effective when administered alongside a comprehensive treatment plan. I suggest giving it a shot if you're struggling with withdrawal, but just know that Lucamira can cause serious side effects, including low blood pressure, slow heart rate, and fainting. Watch for symptoms of low blood pressure or heart rate, including dizziness, lightheadedness, or feeling faint at rest or when quickly standing up. If you experience these symptoms, call your healthcare provider right away. After a period of not using opioid drugs, you can become more sensitive to the effects of opioids if you start using them again. This may increase your risk of overdose and death. Tell your healthcare provider if you take benzodiazepines, barbiturates, tranquilizers, sleeping pills, or drink alcohol, as taking these with Lucamira can cause serious side effects. The most common side effects of Lucamira include low blood pressure or symptoms of low blood pressure, such as lightheadedness, slow heart rate, dizziness, sleepiness, and dry mouth. Lucamira is available by prescription, and only a healthcare provider can decide whether the product is appropriate for you. To find a provider who is right for you and to get more information about Lucamira, visit lucamira.com or call 1-833-LUCEMYRA. That's 1-833-LUCEMYRA. Yeah, so if you're struggling with opioid withdrawal, check out Lucamira. That would be great. I also want to thank the great Nat X of Recovery in the Middle Ages podcast. If you're looking for another recovery podcast, it is about two middle-aged suburban dads and their pursuit of life, love, and recovery. Listen as they discuss current topics of interest in the recovery community, including 12-step, books on recovery, the newest in medical research, interviews. I was on that show. Check it out. It was pretty good. On the show this year. It was a really good episode, if I do say so myself. The daily struggle to maintain the recovery and anonymity in the world of soccer moms and PTA meetings. If the neighbors only knew. You can find Recovery in the Middle Ages wherever you find your podcasts. So check them out. Support Nat. He's a great friend and a great help with Dopey. So here we go. Margaret Cho. It rhymes. All right, hello, and welcome to Dopey, the podcast on drugs, addiction, and dumb shit. This is Margaret Cho. We're in New Jersey, Montclair, New Jersey, at the Wellmont Theater. The dog's name is Lucia.
Lucia Caterina.
I'm like in awe. I'm shocked and scandalized that we're here, and it's such a big, crazy, ornate production.
Yeah, this is great. This is really great. I'm so excited because I listen to your voice so much. So it's funny to see you in person and then hear your voice because usually it's a disembodied voice.
Tell me what is that like for you?
Then you're going to say, break it down, break it down.
Do I say break it down?
And you go, fucking. And that laugh.
Yes.
And you're always really well engaged with your guests. So, and they could either be like some big star, or it could be somebody that is from your beach meeting, or it could be so many different kinds of people. But whoever it is, you're very well researched on who they are in every aspect. So it's not just like celebrity memoir kind of like thing. It's also personal. It's also people that you know, or people you've known a long time, or people that you've read their work, or it's really cool.
See, all I wanted to know is, because I met Ingrid Casares, and she
Yes.
walked into my lobby of my dad's building and said, "Oh, you're so much older. You look so much older than I expected you to look." That was the first thing she said.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was painful. No, I'm just playing. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you actually, you coming on the second time,
Yes.
but you listening. She's wearing a Dopey shirt.
Yeah, I
Very
love this.
Beautiful thing.
I love it.
I was so insecure, just to be honest with you. After our first interview, I figured you had such a bad experience. I don't know why I thought that. Kip Corey, right, connected me to you. Mm-hmm. That's how we hooked up in the first place. Mm-hmm. I figured I did the worst interview with you ever. I did a terrible job. I'd never hear from you again. And then it turns out you start to listen to the show.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan. I listen to it every week, and I go to back episodes, and I really appreciate your interviewing style. I appreciate your approach to recovery, which I think is something that really elevates the whole idea of mental health and wellness. Like, we have this idea of like self-help as being kind of hokey and dumb, and just you look in the mirror saying, I'm enough. But really, it can be such a world of humor and laughter and crassness and real like stories of despair that are so uplifting. So I get a lot of your point of view, and I think it should be elevated to a higher, like I was actually in a hotel lobby a couple of weeks ago, and somebody was behind me trying to talk to Lucia, and I looked in, it was Brene Brown.
No way.
And I was like, oh shit. And I was so starstruck that I couldn't even say anything.
You didn't say anything?
I was like, it was like 1 a.m.
Did she say hi to you?
No, I had a mask on, and she's just trying to talk to my dog. And I was frozen in excitement and fanning out. If I met Gabor Mate, I would freak out. But I think that what you're doing is on the level of what he's doing. So
really?
I appreciate you, yes.
You think Dopey is on the level of in the realm of Hungry Ghosts?
Absolutely. Because it's work that it's a space where it's unheard. It's like, let's celebrate the in the gutter, but all looking up at the stars feeling of this common disease that we only hear negative stuff and corny stuff about. Why don't we actually just like fuel this approach of like, life without that is so much better, but it's so funny to look back at how bad it was.
Right? How bad it was. And like, one of the things that I was struck, because I listened to our talk, and our talk was actually 1,000,000 times better than I realized. Yeah. But it was also just because we were on the phone.
Yeah.
So like, if I'm trying to interject on the phone, it's always awkward or whatever. But the fact that you had gotten sober and then had 6 years of sobriety before you relapsed, And then in the relapse, you ate a big bag of mushrooms, which I thought was a great story. It's like now you have to have seven.
About 7 years. Yeah,
we have like the same exact time.
The same time.
So are you treating it differently?
Yes, I treat my recovery way differently. I make it such a big part of my life that I have to actually have some humor around it. Like I have to do things that make it entertaining. I can't just make it about just serious like therapy and work on myself and writing but I have to like take all of it and make it something that I want to step into. So I have a really strong meditation practice that's just like very sustaining, but it's fun because it's all in VR and it's like very innovative, and so that to me is a big improvement because I never did that before. I didn't go for all of these things that I should have because I kind of felt like recovery also in the 90s and the early 2000s was so corny. Like it was just so, all we had were the 4 agreements. And I disagree.
You disagree with the 4 agreements? With which agreement?
I don't know. I don't remember.
That's funny though. I mean, the 4 agreements, I remember when I read that, it's like all desperation levels.
Yeah.
Right? I was desperate enough to agree with each of the 4 agreements, but I couldn't handle the hokiness of it. And we started Dopey in opposition of that. It really wasn't meant to become what it became. It was meant to be a laugh. And then it became this thing because of the tragedy. Yeah. And the tragedy made me double down on the recovery.
Yeah.
Because we need it. But I want to hear about what was the first opiate you did?
Oh, the first opiate, I think the only one that mattered was blue Roxycontin 30 mil. That's the only one that matters to me. That's the only opiate as far as I'm concerned. Right. But the first one was probably, I don't know, maybe codeine or something from the dentist or whatever. It didn't make an impression. But when I got the Roxycontin, then I was like, this is what matters. This is what's real.
What was the circumstance? And you were like a prodigious pothead.
Way into pot, way into alcohol, way into every drug, but it was the opiates for me. Oh, I guess maybe the first ones were probably like Vicodin. It was sort of the introduction to it. And the blue Roxycontin, part of it was, I think, where it started to really go down was I was isolated. I was living in Atlanta and I was away from my family and friends, and my dog had died. My dog, who was my closest companion, and I had to be away and he wasn't with me and he died without me. And I had become friends with somebody with severe back pain.
Very convenient.
We like to find people that have
what we want.
Vast array of spinal injuries and mobility problems. Right. But so he gave me a selection of pills and then sort of how to do them with the muscle relaxer to create a sort of a drug cocktail that made sense. And it helped tremendously. And that sort of started to take off into that arena. And then also at that time in the South, it was like this, people were doctor shopping all in Florida, and you can get all this stuff and they would just drive it to Georgia. And then you had this pill marketplace up and running, and you can get so many different kinds of opiates, but the most popular are the blue Roxy.
So how successful, how famous were you when you started eating the Roxys?
Still, I was on a television show. I was doing comedy gigs regularly. I was still able to work because I just didn't want anything to touch my work life. As much as I could, I tried to protect that because I thought if I can still work and show up to work, everything's fine. It was kind of like that. I used my work as like a shield to cover all of the damage. So I can still show up at 5 a.m. and be up and ready. I'll be okay. And that was so important. Even though I was physically so sick and really dying, I just, I needed the work to still happen. That the work reminded me that I was still okay. It was being in denial myself, hiding from my own disease by working successfully.
Right. If you can get the laugh, if you can get that warm feeling.
Yeah.
And I read your book. I'm reading your book. Somehow I didn't find your book until too late. And I'm reading your book, and just the dream of your success is so fun for me. Like wanting it. You know what I mean? And then discovering comedy and how much you loved it. Was it weed first or comedy first?
I think it was a measure of both, because comedians love marijuana. Comedians love weed. Like, it's a big part of comedy culture. Like, if you go and do a show, you're always going to be like passing joints backstage after, or like trying to get a pipe lit in the wind outside of a club or whatever. And it's the way that comics hang out with each other, and also to just be able to function. You know, alcohol isn't such a sustainable drug as like weed is. Weed is more doable.
Even the top tier comics are all potheads?
Pretty much everybody.
Is Jerry Seinfeld a pothead?
Oh no, I think Jerry's a little bit different, because he's real straight edge.
Right.
So he's sort of never, I think all of that stuff doesn't really agree with him.
Right.
So he's a little bit different. But yeah, most of the comics that I know, like on that high level, are all very, very big weed enthusiasts, or were at some point.
At some point.
Yeah.
That's fun. Makes me feel good to know that for some reason.
Weed is, I kind of don't have a huge opinion about marijuana. Like, I think I do love it. I think it's really amazing. I do miss a cocktail that I used to serve at my house, which was green tea with like a THC butter and absinthe.
Okay, how do you make it?
It's you brew green tea,
yes,
and then you put the pot butter on top,
wow,
like the THC butter on top, and let it sort of float down, and then you pour absinthe in like a drizzle. So it's called the Green Fairy. And so people would come over to my house, and then they would drink it, and they would I could steal their kidneys if I want. I mean, they were just like, I didn't mean to dose them, because I didn't realize I had such a high tolerance
to the
for
Green
everything.
Fairy.
Yeah, that it wouldn't affect me, but they would just be out and have a nap. But it's that's the one thing I'm like, oh, I wish I could revisit that, but I realize it's not. It's not the same. It's
bizarre. Like I always talk about having this reservation for weed.
Yeah.
And in the back of my mind, I think I can pull it off as an old man. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a safe place for a reservation.
Yeah, it is, because it's well, especially now with all of the different kinds of products that are there for people in terms of marijuana. You know what I love is weed, marijuana lube. It's great for like anal sex. It's perfect, like relaxing.
THC lube?
Yeah, it's so amazing. It's kind of hard to find. It's something that sort of never really broke, but I found it to be life-changing when it came to like pain in anal sex. Also, I definitely think that THC is an aphrodisiac. So
THC, for sure.
So it's like that's all. My reservation always is like kind of anal, like anything I could boof. Because on It's All Bad, there was an episode where they were talking about Lawrence, who put like shards of crystal meth in his asshole. And I was like, oh.
That's a whole big thing.
That's kind of, that's my reservation, is anything in the asshole. But marijuana lube was a big, great invention.
Was that your only boofing thing?
No, I boofed that. I must have boofed something. I don't remember. But
I've never put anything up my butt, really. Nothing really. But butt plugs have become this big thing in Dopey Nation. Mm-hmm. Like this woman, Lizanne, I think she ordered something and she got a butt plug instead. And now butt plugs are just smack all over Dopey Nation. And I'm reading your book about the story, the S&M store you worked at, and I'm realizing like there's a really big crossover here.
Yeah.
So I love that the THC butt plug is a reservation, or the THC lube. When's the last time you used THC lube?
Oh, it's probably 2013, something like that. It's been about 10 years.
What about CBD lube? Is that legal?
Yeah, I guess so. I've never used that.
Have you ever used CBD at all? Mm-mm. Me neither.
Yeah, I don't know. She's used CBD. My cats and my dog use CBD sometimes. I don't know. I don't know if you get high off it or not, but it helps their inflammation, I guess. But I've never saw the advantage of it for my own use.
The THC lube, I've never put anything up my butt except for like a couple of women have played a little bit. But that, I mean, it's never been a big thing for me. But in Dopey Land, it's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Lots of people are just, there's a very classic Dopey listener in Louisiana named Jeremy Turner, and his thing was boofing crystal. But I want to get back to you. Boofing is such a funny word.
It's so funny. It's, I guess, butt fucking. That's that what it's supposed to sort of be the...
I don't know. I never even imagined, but I guess that is it. You just take the T out of butt fucking and you get boofing.
Boofing. Something like that. But I also like parachuting, which is, you know, you wrap something in like paper and swallow it. There's something about that affects the system differently. So I've done that a few times.
So what have you wrapped in paper?
Ecstasy or MDA Molly. Anything like that, like a pill, any kind of pill, I think. Something about it, I think it cancels the time release.
It can't. It feels like it would create more time.
There's something about it where it makes you create more. This is so stupid, junkie science, but it makes you create more stomach acid because the paper is more like
that's classic junkie science.
Cellulose. So that, like, I know the junkie science of you're going to burn through with more acid and burn through the time release.
Did you think it's true? Do you think that's real?
I felt like it was real.
Okay.
Even if it was a placebo.
It's a thrill to sit across the table from you. I just want to tell you.
Good.
When you were, before you got sober and you're using and you're touring and you're going to shows, how did that work?
You just do it. You just do it. And I would get super dope sick. And that's where Kratom came in. Because I was dope sick, so then I was trying to figure out how to deal with it. So my friend and I, we were dope sick together. So he told me off of Heroin that they said if you did a lot of Imodium, you wouldn't get dope sick.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
And that's actually what we did. We would do down a whole bottle of Imodium.
And it worked.
It worked. But then it was like, oh, he found this other thing. Let's take it one step further. There's this thing called Kratom. It's legal. And he sent me all these like links to look at it. And so we order a bunch and it would just come in this like big blocks. It looked like henna powder. And we'd put it in like capsules and swallow it. But then that was just so time consuming to like put it in capsules. And so you have to do so much of it to have any kind of effect. So I ended up getting a travel blender, and I would pour in like a huge amount of Kratom and then like a whole like lemonade and just do it like a smoothie.
Kratom lemonade smoothie. It's gross.
Gross, but that got more down. And I found that really alleviated being dope sick and gave me not a high, but it is almost like I've never done Suboxone, but it seems to me that's probably what it is. It's sort of like you just feel like you're going to be okay. It's like, I'm okay.
It's bizarre to me because it's a root. It's like
it's a leaf.
It's a leaf, but it works. I mean, because last episode, for a bunch of episodes now, we've been talking a lot about Kratom, which is why I was excited that you had a history with it and you wanted to talk about it. But it's like in the last episode, I was reading a couple of emails about this guy who ate 80 milligrams a day or some crazy amount. And then I started getting texts and emails from people saying, well, what about the pro-Kratom side? And it's like, is there a pro-Kratom side? But then there's this guy who's a big Dopey fan, and he was a heroin addict and an oxy addict. And he takes Kratom every day. And he's like, well, I take Kratom instead of doing heroin.
Yeah. That is the pro side. The positive aspect of Kratom is it does help with dope sickness, which, I mean, I think that if you're a heavy-duty opiate user, anything that would keep you from being dope sick, it's a lifesaver, actually. Like, if you kind of are considering, like, getting off of opiates, which is a great decision for anybody, then Kratom is absolutely a great process because it's legal, it's fairly inexpensive, it's easy to get, it tastes disgusting, but it will give you not a high, but it'll give you a benefit where you're just not dope sick, which actually, like, at that point, if you're a heavy dope user, anything to be not dope sick, that's kind of usually what you'll get anyway, you know? Because it's not like we're not even getting high anymore after a certain point. You're just trying to not be sick.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Like, I don't think there's a pro-Kratom thing I could say for somebody who's not an opiate addict.
Yeah, if you're already an opiate addict, maybe it's good instead of methadone. It's good instead of subs. But I mean, if you can get subs, I can't believe people put Suboxone in their eye.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
That's
I know, that's
crazy.
It seems very painful.
But also, that gives me. I have a reservation.
What, you want to put Suboxone in your eyes from that story? Why?
Because I'm like, well, does it work? I'm like kind of curious.
It had to have worked. Did you ever put LSD in your eyes in San Francisco? Did you ever get the mirroring drop?
No. That I would like to do that too.
Me too. I would like to do that. I would like to smoke weed in my old age. I don't want to put Suboxone in my eyes. That
seems like it would be fun. Also, I would like to take psilocybin mushrooms and put them in honey until the honey gets blue, and then make tea out of that.
See, I would like to do that.
Yeah.
One day. Maybe 1 year in Jerusalem, we'll do that together.
I just have to, whenever I look at those kinds of things that are reservations, I have to go, okay, I'll do that, but not today.
Right, exactly. Or ayahuasca with Dr. Mate in wherever he is in Canada.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And I've decided I'm going to give up my Canadian hatred, which is a nice moment for me.
Oh.
How strung out on Kratom were you?
I was so strung out on Kratom, and I was so sick from it that but I was also not really sure if I could be. So I couldn't decide, like, am I dope sick or am I sick off Kratom? I don't really know, but I was heavily addicted to it. So when I went to rehab, they were detoxing me off of opiates, alcohol, benzodiazepines, but they didn't have anything for Kratom because they didn't really know what it was or what to do with it. So I could feel that there was something else that I needed. Maybe part of the opiate withdrawal was like, I wasn't so addicted that I needed subs. There were a lot of people at my rehab that were taking Suboxone, but I didn't need it. So maybe that the phenobarbital and whatever stuff, cocktail things they were giving me was enough. But it also felt like the way that it left my system, the way that benzodiazepines do leave your system is a really horrible exit as well. So maybe it's that too, but I just think Kratom is
it's insidious.
It's an insidious drug because it doesn't give you any real payoff. Like opiates, there's huge payoff. If you really, like, we're really honest about opiates, it's like,
it's amazing.
It's a huge payoff, but you can't do it over time, but Kratom, there's never ever any real like high from it.
When I talk to people, they say it's simultaneously an upper and a downer.
Yeah.
It feels like an amphetamine and an opioid. And you say, but I think, you're taking blues, you're taking the Roxy's.
Roxycontin.
Were you taking them at the same time as the Kratom?
Yes.
Did you ever replace them fully with the Kratom?
I think there was inevitably times where you'd have to.
Because if you went to detox and they didn't give you Suboxone for the Roxy's, it sounds like you used the Kratom pretty responsibly.
Yeah, I used it for what it's for.
It's pretty amazing.
Basically for like not being dope sick. So it's so weird. It's weird though because you will get dope sick off of the Kratom instead. Though.
Right. Well, that's what we're hearing. We're hearing about all these people doing Kratom and now they're on Suboxone.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they have a protocol for kicking Suboxone and they don't have a protocol for kicking Kratom, so that might be what you need to do.
It's so hard though because there's all these like Kratom bars and like it's just to me, and that's like so weird that it's so incredibly available. And I mean, I sort of don't want to like say, oh, this shouldn't be legal or whatever. I would rather we have like harm reduction and everybody sort of decriminalize drugs completely and let people choose. But, people are really not aware of how dangerous Kratom is.
Where are Kratom bars?
I think they're like in like places where they have kava bars.
When I got clean in Delray, there was kava bars and I would go, but I never felt the kava at all.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was out and about, which was exciting.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fine. And I don't think it's a slip. I think if you're sober, I don't think of that as like a slip necessarily.
Kava or Kratom?
Kava or Kratom?
Neither.
It's just a different kind of thing. I don't think, for me it would be, but I think it's one of those things that you sort of have to decide on your own. I don't have like absolutes when it comes to like sobriety. People do whatever they need to do.
It's all about quality of life.
That's right.
And happiness.
Yeah.
I totally have the same feeling in terms of like, I mean, for me, I have absolutes for how I approach drugs and recovery. And sometimes like I find myself to be dogmatic when I talk about it, but then when I think about it, it's like anyone should do whatever they want and have whatever experience anybody wants to have. It's just like, if you're somebody who has a drug problem and I've had it and we've had a drug problem, so we share our experience and you hope people do well. Like Margaret actually is a fan of Dopey, and we were talking about Fentanyl J, and to hear you talk about Jay, like I almost started crying. You saw, I mean, like, just because I love that kid, and the fact that you listened to him and you had a reaction to him, I found that to be very powerful to me and interesting and weird.
Yeah. Well, he's so, I really wish the best for him, and there's something about him that you have like targeted, like I feel like you have some sort of, like he'll listen to you, like he'll really listen in a way that's really meaningful. I feel like he looks up to you a lot. And so it's a great sign that he's going to do the right thing, get better. I'm really on his side. I really want him to beat this because I think he's just such a special kid. So I believe in him.
Do you think like in your time in recovery, do you come across that a lot where you meet somebody and you so wish you could give them recovery or like, it's so important that when we talk about Kratom or we talk about Suboxone or we talk about Methadone, it's like we don't want to judge and we don't want to judge anyone who smokes weed. But at the same time, you want to give them your recovery. Yes.
I mean, there's so many situations where you would like to help people, but the thing about it is that you can't do anything to save anybody. Everybody's going to do what they were going to do. And also, even though they seem like they're being honest, they may only be sharing something they just want you to believe. So we're not immune to being manipulated ourselves. So it's hard. But there's a lot of people, like at my facility now, the 17th person just died that went to treatment with me. And it's really tragic because it's all these people with so much potential in their lives and they couldn't be helped. Sad.
It's terrifying. It's like, and fentanyl becomes this boogeyman.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, because it's killing everybody. And if you're not a fentanyl addict or a heroin addict, that you say, oh, I can do coke and hope that my coke, it's like a joke. Yeah. I hope my coke dealer isn't getting fentanyl. And it's like, I mean, I couldn't imagine, like, I mean, with Chris, like with Chris who started the show, he would say on the show, we got sober before fentanyl was a thing. And I wonder what it's like. And I know that in the back of his head, he wondered to the point of using it and dying from it. Did you have any experience with fentanyl?
No, but I'm lucky that I didn't. And I'm really glad that I didn't, because it also, what makes me mad about fentanyl is it doesn't have any legs. It doesn't last very long. So I'm like, that's bullshit then. I don't want
But when I was in treatment, they would talk about the analgesic packs and the fentanyl lollipops, and they made it sound incredibly like better than heroin. Yeah. And now it doesn't sound that way.
It doesn't sound that way. And also with the xylazine mix, like drugs now it just seems so out of reach, like that, and the cartel meth that you really see the effects of it, like the way that the communities of the unhoused have like really, usually just from my experience of working with like unhoused communities and like feeding people and stuff, was not that bad like in 2013, 2014. But now it seems so out of control. And the way that you're seeing so much mental illness that is so unlike anything I've experienced, then I think it's all in the drugs. They're just going so far and so chemically so different from what I know.
I know it's horrible and it's terrifying. And I don't know, like that lady who was on the show the last time, the judge, Mary Beth O'Connor, the fact that she was very anti-12-step, I found to be refreshing in that she did it. She did it. It's like, I find that people who are anti-12-step who aren't doing it to be less refreshing. You know what I mean? Because it's like, for me, I needed the plan. I needed like...
Yeah. But there's all different ways, which is why I think Dopey is so important, is that it shows you that there's different ways of approaching it. Although I wish that Sean Weiss would go to meetings. I love him too.
He was great on the show.
He's a beautiful guy.
He was so vulnerable.
He's a beautiful guy.
And was so there.
What a beautiful, beautiful man. I admire him. And I'm actually friends with Judd Apatow, and I was like, oh, maybe I could get them to hang out. Like, just want to see that relationship mended. But I really love Sean Weiss, and I really want him to, I want him to be 12-step. But I mean, it's everybody's own journey. I have a lot of problems with different aspects of the things that I've done. And so, there are things that are not perfect, but I actually like the 12-step model. I think it works for me.
What are some of the problems you were about to talk about?
That, you're sort of like around people who are also addicts and alcoholics all the time. And then your review is skewed sometimes by their own illnesses, their mental illness, their addictions and stuff. And so that's also the great part about it. That's also what's good about it.
What's the bad part? Just too many crazy people, you mean?
Well, you can sort of think, I think you can get disillusioned with people who have a fire share.
Right.
And then you're into what they're saying, and then you find out they're a complete lunatic.
Right.
Like that, just stuff like that. I guess I'm always looking for a guru. I want to believe in somebody who will tell me who I am.
Right.
And there's lots of people that will, and that's the problem.
Right.
Is that they're all crazy too, but they're going to tell you who you are.
No, I love that. That's very smart. Because it's it's the inside job thing. Mm-hmm. You need to find out who you are, and you need to find a way to like yourself, or at least deal with it.
Yeah.
When your alcoholism and your addiction was first starting to really manifest, and you're in those big situations with the Joan Rivers and the Jerry Seinfelds and the Robin Williams when he was sober, do any of them take you aside? Do they notice?
No, I think it's that's the thing is they were all kind of always looked at me like I was really like a little kid. It was hard for them not to, because I've just known them since I was a little kid. So they sort of just treat me like that. And then also they're just so busy. They would never have the time to sort of really know what's actually going on in the dailiness of being an active alcoholic. So that wasn't really an issue. It was just more like my own misery of having to just keep doing it every day. And I was definitely, it's not like actively suicidal, but just so done with life. Like I couldn't see what was good about life to move on. And I needed to drink and use drugs just to be able to carry on. And then it just, the misery just compounds on itself. When you're also dealing with like a hangover and being dope sick at the same time, and then having to chug a giant thing of Kratom with a lemonade in a gross travel blender. Like it's so disgusting, all of that. Like I just can't imagine going back, but that's why I try to really go for it now and try to surround myself with things like your podcast with Dopey, with any kind of like sober memes, I think are really funny.
Yeah, me too.
It's so fun.
I know. When they're good. When they're good.
It's so funny.
Yes.
It's such a great, funny, like refreshing thing to be able to witness and see. And I love when going to meetings when people are super controlling and you just see the disease in action. Yeah. That's hilarious.
Business meeting.
I love an Al-Anon business meeting.
An Al-Anon at next level. The Al-Anon business meeting.
It's so hilarious. So I do, I embrace sort of like the nasty side of it as well. Like when people are actively being nuts, I think it's really fun.
No, I agree. I mean, it is mental illness on display.
Yeah.
And it's entertaining. If you can sit out. If you can sit out and not get in the ring, it's entertaining.
Yeah.
I mean, when we talked last time on the phone for Dopey, you talked about hanging yourself in a Ambien vodka blackout.
Yeah.
But now you're talking about that you were, on the fence of being suicidal. So how blacked out were you? Like, can you remember any of that?
Yeah. I mean, it was more just the malaise. It was like ennui, the torpor.
Like what's that word?
Torpor. Like torpor.
What's torpor?
Torpor is like restless, irritable, and discontent. That's like a dull gray torpor. It's just like a horrible. Everything is just sucks. Everything sucks. That kind of thing. Just couldn't get excited about anything. And I think it was not about being actively suicidal, but just being done with life. Like I'm just so done.
There's nothing.
There's nothing. And what a horrible thing to feel. Like what a horrible, life is so precious and so fun now. Like I have a really good time and every day is different and it's so special. And, you know, I don't have great days all the time. Sometimes things are tough, but they're nothing like from when I was drinking and using drugs. There's nothing as bad as that.
I had like a bad couple weeks recently, and I was like, and I wasn't going to meetings. You know what I mean? I wasn't going, and I wasn't like going to use, but I felt insane, and I felt miserable, and I didn't want to go to the I didn't want to be saved. You know what I mean? I didn't want to have to go and like be like, I need, and be like the person, oh, I needed this meeting so badly. Like I didn't want to say all that stuff. And then I went to like 3 meetings, and I was like totally back.
Yeah.
You know, totally clicked in. And like here we're doing like a commercial for fucking Alcoholics Anonymous. And, but it's just one of those things, like I whatever it is, I need my spirit to be tuned. Mm-hmm. And I need to be around people that are suffering, and I need to hear stuff, and I need to participate, and I need to help people when I can. And it's just funny how easy it is to like, because I can be miserable, and then if that misery is extended, like what comes next?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it sounds to me like that's where you're at. You're like, you're doing whatever you can to keep yourself having fun. Mm-hmm. And that's great. I love that.
It's fun, and every day another level of fun gets unlocked. So you're like able to like actually experience more. I really feel like more of my brain is recovering from all of that drinking and using drugs. Like I think like my synapses are rebuilding or reconnecting. So that's what's really cool is I can use more of my, you know, my frontal lobe. Like I think I had so much brain damage from just constantly just drinking and using drugs that now I do feel like, oh, it actually does regenerate. So it's powerful.
And how is sobriety in your comedy?
Oh, it's just so much better. Like it's so much easier. It's really like, you know, I really care what people think so much, but then actually I can let it go after it's done. Like in the moment, like I'm in it, but I don't go away feeling those bad feelings or those good feelings. Like I don't have like, I think what it's done is that I don't have so much of a sense of like my entire ego being on the line anytime I put myself out artistically. Because it is for the moment, but then I can leave it.
Right.
You know, whereas before I would pine and be furious and relive it and what else I could have done and what else I could have done or it was just so good I would want it to carry on that I just let it go in the moment and then walk away, which has really improved my ability so much. So it's
such a learned response though. Because like I forget that shit constantly and it's like it's conditioning.
It's hard though. It's hard if you're in the creative field. Because what we're doing isn't just like a 9-to-5 job. It's like what we're doing is we're actually coming at this with our whole ass soul. You know, you do this every day with your whole being. So when that's somehow rejected or we perceive that it's rejected, a reaction is so out of proportion. Or if it's loved, our reaction is so out of proportion to what it should be. It's very hard.
When you got sober, like when you're in that last leg, if nobody's noticing, like how do you get yourself to it? Like if you're being able to pull off in your very public life, like how do you, if you're pulling it off, like what was the final thing?
Oh, well, I didn't get sober from my own. I had an intervention.
Right.
I was trapped
but
into
who
it.
gave you the intervention?
My manager and my friends.
Because they were plugged in.
They were like, she's not going to live. Like they were really scared. So they saved my life. You know, that's like so incredible. But I was so mad because I wanted to die. Like I'm fucking just trying to die. Would you just let me die? Like, can I just do one thing? I just want to fucking die. I didn't realize, but you know, what that's like when the mask starts to slip. And I couldn't keep it up. So yeah, they really saved my life, but that was such a great part about it, you know, and then coming back into recovery and the people that I had known from like the 90s recovery were still there. And they're, you know, it was so cool. You know, they all had like kids and they weren't wearing like low-rise jeans anymore. Everybody didn't have a big belt buckle. Like it was like very like different.
Things had changed.
Everything had changed. And it was just so beautiful to see them like, you know, still around and still like killing it, but being full-grown people. So that was really nice.
How did they spring the intervention on you?
Oh, they tricked me into going to a birthday party that I didn't want to go to.
Whose birthday?
It was for my friend Scott. It was his birthday, and then it was also for my friend Ian's birthday. So it was like this thing, but I was kind of like, this is weird.
Smelled hinky.
They've never forced me to go to a party before. So that's it. And then I was kind of half in pajamas, but I had a handbag, and they took me to rehab from there.
And you had the bottle of wine. When you walk in, were you like, oh shit?
Yeah, because everybody was crying. When they're sitting in a circle and all the blinds are drawn and it's real dark and everybody's crying, it's like, and they all have pieces of paper that are shaking in their hand, like, fucking no. Like, they didn't even get through all their letters. I was like, let's just go.
Listen, we have to have you back again, because I want to talk about your rise in comedy. I want to talk about the story of your dad's gay relationship and he punches the guy.
Yeah.
I want to talk about all that stuff, but
Okay.
we're here for your show and for this incredible fancy time documentary, which is pretty fancy.
It's super fancy. And I mean, I love that that Dopey is getting this platform. It really should be elevated, and it should be like a huge, like a worldwide brand, because this saves lives. It's like when you can talk to people on a level of really understanding what they're going through and also entertain them. Like, it's great. And then the people that are listening now who are getting high, it's like, I understand. Like, I so deeply identify with anybody that listens to Dopey and is getting high listening. Because it's like, what a great thing. Because it's like, you want your life to be better, and it can be better. We're all rooting for you because we know how painful that life is.
See, it's like, there's guys that go to my meeting that are high, and I'm like, I never would have done that. Like, I wouldn't go to a meeting high. Did you ever go to meetings high?
I never went to meetings high, but I definitely watch a hella intervention high.
Me too. Are you kidding me? That was my thing, but I'd root for them not to get well.
I would look for ideas of, I didn't know you could do that.
I would always root for them not to get well. Linda still watches intervention, and I'm like, it's a little heavy for me. It's a little much for me now. It's
heavy. You know what's so intense? Like, I feel bad for anybody who does Duster.
Oh, yeah.
Or like the girl that you had on who did deodorant.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, that's heavy. Like, I could have definitely got down with that. Like, I'm like, oh, yeah. Like, I would definitely get down with that kind of stuff.
I told somebody about that woman. Her name is Myra Diaz-Gomez. And I was like, oh, yeah, she would get high huffing deodorant. And this woman I was explaining it to couldn't imagine that there was a spray deodorant. So she's just imagining you huffing a roll-on. How are you doing that?
I know.
So when did you actually start listening?
I started listening, it's a while ago, but then I was starting to listening back. So it's been quite a while. I can't really remember, but I listened to really far back. Like, also I love Mackenzie Phillips. I love her episodes.
She was great.
She's badass. She's so cool. Like,
you friendly with her?
I don't know her, but I admire her so much. Like, I just really look up to her, and I'm so grateful that she is out there telling her story, like how famous somebody could be, and then how deep and difficult her disease is. Like, she's really incredible.
You wrote me after you listened to Smelly from NoFX, and I was like, holy cow, Margaret Cho is listening to the show. I couldn't even believe it. Yeah. And also most importantly, tell the Dopey Nation how much you love my dad.
I love Alan. And I would love to come hang out and do an episode with Alan and just, chill.
Definitely.
So I would love to meet Alan. I would love to meet Fentanyl J. Hopefully, Hopefully that can happen.
I should have brought Jay to this.
I would have loved to see him. I'll replace some of his Supreme shirts. So nice. I got you. When I see you, I got you.
A huge offer for Jay.
Yeah, I got you. I got a hookup, and I got you.
We didn't mention if people can see your show, Live and Livid. Yeah. How do we say that?
People can see my show, Live and Livid, all over. I am on tour, and you can find out about my show on margaretcho.com.
Nice.
My website. You can buy tickets and everything.
Check them out, margaretcho.com.
Yes, thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
All right, that was Margaret Cho. I cannot say what it means that Margaret is listening to the show. It is so meaningful to me. And when I found out that she was listening, I got like endorphins right to my brain. So, and we're going to do another talk with Margaret. I think Margaret might come to DopeyCon. It's October 7th. Start planning now. We're booking hotels. I think we're going to figure out a way to make it a podcast and a big meetup, and it's going to be great. October 7th in New York City. Hopefully Margaret will come. Definitely other people will come. You should come. So I'm in Louisiana, and I'm a crazy, I'm a crazy fan of dopes in the Dopey Nation. It is a definite two-way street for Dopey and the dopes of the Dopey Nation. And Jeremy Turner is a classic dope of the Dopey Nation, and it was very hard to come down to Louisiana and not get in touch with Jeremy. So here's Jeremy. All right, so listen, I am in New Orleans, Louisiana, and anybody who's a faithful listener of the show, not like a new fucking bullshit listener of the show, but a faithful listener of the show, knows that we have a very, very strong Louisiana fucking existence, and one of the anchors and one of the greatest Dopey storytellers in the history of Dopey is Jeremy Turner, a.k.a. Whitey Tighty. Welcome to the show in person.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I like what I'm hearing.
You gotta hold the mic closer to your mouth.
A lot closer.
I'm gonna lose my mind.
Right here's good.
Now, so we meet in the park and describe to the Dopey Nation where you find me.
Okay, so I find Dave in the dirt,
sitting cross-legged like a fucking Jewish hippie.
Like a hippie, definitely. And he's having a meeting with 3 other people. And it's the first time we've met in person.
Yes.
He immediately got up to come hug me, which was great. Because I didn't know if he was a hugger or not.
How could I not be a hugger?
I don't know, but I was going to make you hug me.
Oh, motherfucker. We sat down right before like the next hurricane comes through, and I feel, is it starting?
It's close. It's not far.
Now, I went to that meeting. I walked 3 miles on Coliseum Street to Coliseum State Park. I get to the meeting. It's one dude. It's like, oh, boy. Then another dude comes. Then this woman comes, and we each shared 3 times. We're like 15 minutes in. It's like, okay. And then they're like, let's double dip. So they all start sharing again, and then they triple dip.
Nice.
That was a fucking triple dip meeting, but it was good. I felt great, and to finally meet you is a true joy. And it's apropos that you're on this Kratom boofing special because you were the master meth boofer.
Yes.
And I just found out that you were also addicted to Kratom.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, I did Kratom when I was on the boat.
I think we talked about Kratom.
I could not. Yeah, we have a whole. Yeah, it's on a special or whatever, like a Christmas special. But
Kratom, have yourself a Kratom little Christmas.
Man, look, I would get the powder and the little capsules, and I had a capsule maker, and I would fill up the capsules, and then I'd have just a bag of capsules, like 0.5 gram capsules of Kratom, and I would take like 6 or 7 a day, and if I missed a dose, okay, I would know it almost immediately.
What was it feel like?
Well, my nose would start running. I would have body aches, headaches, just complete withdrawal, opiate withdrawal symptoms.
And did you use your capsule maker to make anything else?
No. No.
Nothing?
Nothing else. No.
Did you ever make fake pills and make money on the capsule maker?
No.
Are you serious?
I swear to
God. You
God.
had a machine that made capsules and you never made pills and made money on it?
No. I'm not much of a hustler. No.
You're not much of a hustler. You're more of a boat guy.
Yeah.
A sailor.
Yeah.
So how long were you on Kratom for?
Oh, probably the better part of 2 or 3 years, when I couldn't get to normal drugs.
Normal drugs being meth?
Yes.
And how did you deal with the withdrawal in general?
Well, okay, so if I was going home to do meth, I would just do a lot of meth and I wouldn't feel it. But if I was on the boat and I didn't have any more, I would probably take whatever that anti-diarrhea pill is.
Imodium.
Yes, lots of Imodium.
So Imodium is like the methadone for Kratom.
I guess it doesn't get you high.
Margaret Cho said something very, very similar.
Yeah. Imodium will stop the immediate withdrawal symptoms. It doesn't necessarily get you high though. Although I do hear if you drink some white grape juice, it's supposed to get past the blood-brain barrier. Look it up. I don't know.
White grape juice.
Yeah,
blood brain barrier.
it's-
What are you saying here?
Something in the chemical of like white cranberry juice pushes it past the blood brain.
How does that work? I don't even know what the blood brain barrier is really.
Well,
I really don't know a lot of stuff.
Kratom doesn't. It just there's a ceiling to how high you get on it. Okay. After that, you just get sick. You just probably throw up if you do too much of it because it has large amounts of caffeine in it. It's like a cousin to the coffee plant.
Right.
So it's just loaded with caffeine. Yeah. So
What could you explain this blood brain barrier to me?
So okay, it doesn't pass the blood-brain barrier.
What does that mean though?
Like when you shoot up,
Yes.
it's going straight into your blood, right? So if you take a normal drug like you ingest it, it has to go through your stomach to actually get into your blood system. So I don't know. It's something about the brain.
I'm gonna Google blood brain.
You
barrier.
should. You should.
We-
I'm not a scientist, by the way.
You always struck me as incredibly scientific. Hold on. Now I want to know. Before we get into your boofing exploits and more about Kratom. You haven't been on the show in a little while, right? When's the last time you were on? I don't even remember.
I want to say 2 years ago around Christmas.
Dude, it's a long time.
It's been a while.
So we need a as thorough an update as possible.
Okay, so I've been doing pretty good. I did meth in 21 on February, and then didn't do it for another year, and I relapsed in February.
So you did meth last February. Hold on. What is the blood-brain barrier? Hold
Yes.
on, I'm going to answer. A network of blood vessels and tissue that is made up of closely spaced cells and helps keep harmful substances from reaching the brain.
Right.
The blood-brain barrier lets some substances in, such as water, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and general anesthetics, pass into the brain. What drugs can cross the blood-brain barrier? A handful of drugs slip into the brain by passive diffusion, among them antidepressants, medications for schizophrenia and epilepsy, along with caffeine, alcohol, and nicotine. These molecules are extremely small. Doesn't say opiates. Doesn't matter. Maybe it does. And if you know, I'm sure somebody out there knows a lot about the blood-brain barrier, so please send in an email to dopeypodcast@gmail.com. So you did meth 2 Februarys ago.
Right.
And what was the end of the run then?
Well, I got beat up. I got jumped in New Orleans during like a blackout and got put in the hospital. Had some pretty serious facial damage and probably some head trauma, I'm sure. And the relapse didn't end there, but it just took me to some really dark places as far as like people, places, and things got really dark. And
can you share any of that?
Well, I probably talked about that when I was during the pandy.
I think so, yeah.
During the pandemic. After that, so
Do they say pandy down here? Is
I'm
that a
saying
thing?
the pandy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So then it was a year. So then 21 I did a little bit, and then it was a whole year, and then I went out for
How did you get the year?
just working a lot, just working a ton.
So you definitely go from hardcore using to
Right.
hardcore working.
Correct.
So how did you get back to hardcore using this year?
I wouldn't say it was hardcore. I would say it was a medium light.
How did you get to softcore using this year?
I just was, I had a bad breakup around Christmas.
Yes.
I worked about 40 weeks out of the year last year, and
Too much work.
yeah, I accomplished a lot.
And you quit Dopey Zoom. You were once a linchpin
Yes.
of the Dopey Zoom community.
I stopped going to Dopey Zoom after Colleen died, so that had a lot to do with it. But that's no excuse.
You and Colleen were tight.
Big time, yeah. But that's no excuse because I'm still close with a lot of people there.
No, it's a good reminder. It's like we get on with our lives, and I haven't thought about Colleen in a long time, and you bringing it up, it's like it's a ton of bricks. But that's I also would say I understand why you wouldn't go, but that's also a good reason to go back.
Definitely. I've been showing my face here the last few weeks.
Nice.
So I don't know. I was frustrated at work. I knew it was going to be the end of that job. I was going to be moving on. And I just got off the boat and went straight to where I knew some dope was, and that was it.
Was there any reservation about not going? Were you ever like, I shouldn't do it? Or
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, no, I was sick to my stomach.
But you were like, fuck it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how bad was the run? How bad is a softcore run?
Well, I mean, I didn't really leave the house much. I didn't. If I was,
Were you boofing it?
I was not moving it. No,
shooting
I
it?
was snorting everything.
Just snorting it?
Just snorting it. Yep.
Was that for a reason?
Yeah, because I felt like, I wanted to feel it. That way I would probably get tired of doing it faster.
You weren't worried about shooting it or boofing it?
And no, I didn't have any impulses.
What's your favorite way to do it?
If I'm just trying to get out there, shooting it, of course. Yeah.
So, like, that is something that you're holding back, and that's probably why it isn't a hardcore run. Why
Right,
it is a
yeah.
softcore run.
Yeah, and I mean, your nose hurts. And I mean, look, I tell you, Ray was in New Orleans when I was during my relapse, and so was Misty. So there was two people that
Misty
came.
was here, too?
Misty came down. Yeah, she called me. She was like, I'm in New Orleans in the French Quarter, and I couldn't come see either one because I was so high. I was like,
I was just talking to Ray, and Ray was like, yeah, I think Jeremy was on vacation. I was like, yeah, he was on vacation in Meth Town. He's not fucking on vacation.
yeah. I told him I was high. I admitted it.
It's funny. Ray can't help himself but protect you.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I think he was on vacation.
He's so sweet.
Yeah, he is. But I threw you under the bus really
Totally.
fast. So how did you get out of Meth Town vacation? That's what we're going to call your relapses. from
Well,
now
my
on,
sister-
is vacation.
My sister kind of like, she kind of figured I was out because I wasn't answering my question. I wasn't answering her phone calls. And, yeah, so she threatened to come over, and I was like, no, I'm high. Do not come over. And then she ended up calling all my friends and telling them I'm relapsed. And
So we just moved into Jeremy's car because it started pouring on us in the park. And the first question is, can you boof kratom? Is it a boofable substance? You don't know.
I think you probably
You don't even
can.
know what the blood-brain barrier is. Give me a fucking break. You think it's boofable because it's powder.
Right, and I'm not going to try it.
And like, let's talk about boofing. Margaret Cho, brilliantly said, she posed the question and answered it at the same time. Where does the phrase boofing come from? And she came up with butt fucking.
Oh.
Where do you think the phrase boofing came from?
No, I like that answer. That's a good answer. I'm not even going to try to think of where it came from.
So Margaret Cho says boofing comes from butt fucking. And I remember, I'm pretty naive to the world of boofing.
Right.
And I remember back in the day, me and Chris were talking about boofing, and I said, does the anus become a third nostril where it somehow sucks up meth? Could you take us through what has to happen in order for your ass to absorb the powder?
Okay, so with meth, you can take a big rock, stick it up there. Now, that one's going to hurt a little bit.
Why doesn't it come out? You clench?
Well, yeah, you kind of lube it up, stick it in there, and you clench.
Have you ever used the THC lube?
Never.
Margaret
No.
says that's a thing. So if you're going to have another vacation, I totally suggest the THC lube.
No, THC makes
No, I
me
don't
fucking-
suggest. I don't suggest the vacation.
No, not at all. But so if you want to do it correctly, you would just take a syringe without a needle, water it down.
So you break the needle off,
You
or
can
you
do
get
that.
one of those old school turkey baster kind of things.
Or you can do the turkey baster. I've done that too. And then you water it down, and then you up it goes.
And why doesn't you clench? That's why it doesn't come out.
Well, you have to relax your butthole.
But okay, so you relax your butthole.
Correct.
This is the thing. Like when I used to
To get it in there.
fine. I've never put anything up the butt. I mean,
Not even a finger?
not even a finger.
Oh, okay.
No, I never. I mean, maybe there was a tongue up there one time, but I don't really need to go down that path. But
It didn't go in, though. It just went around.
it might have. It was around there.
Okay.
But the point is that, like when I smoked heroin, I felt like I was missing a lot of the smoke, and that really bothered me.
Okay.
And I would imagine shooting liquid up my butt, some would come out, and that would bother me.
No.
Nothing comes out.
No, man.
Where does it go that it doesn't drip down? Why doesn't gravity remove some of it?
Well,
There's not a driplet out?
okay, so with meth, yeah, you will have...
You have to relax and then clench, I'm assuming.
You have
like
to
a
definitely
burst.
clench.
You have to clench.
Because after a while, your body's absorbing it, and it wants to reject it, but you have to go, no, I cannot waste this.
So you're holding it in like a stoner or a crackhead holds in a hit for too long.
That's a great analogy.
So you're zeroing the boofing of the
Yes.
liquid meth in your asshole through clenching and absorption.
Yes,
It's amazing.
definitely.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think you've really taught me a lot.
And let me tell you, even though shooting up is my favorite route, the most intense way to do meth is by boofing. I mean,
Why?
It just the way it feels, just the because it's like a higher euphoria. It's a more intense feeling. It hits you. It doesn't hit you as quick because when you shoot up, you feel it almost immediately. But boofing, you have to wait, but it hits you harder when it finally does hit. So
It hits you harder than a shot.
oh yeah,
You have no idea. I shouldn't ask you these scientific questions. You're gonna bullshit me.
I'll try.
Okay, so why do you think, Professor Turner, that boofing hits harder than shooting?
Well, because the amount, the lining of your gut has these membranes that are meant for absorption.
But is it going into your
and you
butt?
have more tissue to absorb.
It doesn't get to your gut.
It just goes in your colon, right there.
And your colon has all that absorption.
That's all your gut is.
So would you say I've never used drugs because I've never had that level of absorption?
I would say that.
Oh,
yes.
how dare you say such a thing? How could you say such a thing?
Well,
All
yeah,
right.
you haven't lived.
Until you've
boofed.
boofed, you've
correct.
clenched, absorbed, zero to hit that way.
Yep.
Now, I think we just caused like a percentage of the Dopey Nation to go out. So I want to reel it back in. You've been casually drinking. How many days do you have totally with nothing? One day?
You asked me to.
Yeah.
You asked me to go a few days.
Did you do it?
No,
So you drank last night?
I did drink last night.
Yeah, you texted me late.
I had a margarita.
One margarita?
Well, no, I was asleep by like 8:30, and by the time you texted me,
You
I
woke
was.
up for a sec?
I woke up,
Right.
used the bathroom, and I saw your text, and I was like, okay.
So here's the question.
Mm-hmm.
Dopey was never meant to be a recovery show, but shit happens and things go the way they go.
Right.
Now, do you plan on pursuing your recovery? Wow, that's a big no.
I'm on the
that
fence.
that pause is a big no. Well, I appreciate the honesty.
I plan on reconnecting.
The pause was, am I going to be honest or not? Not, am I going to recover or not?
I'm not gonna bullshit you, Dave. I'm not about to go to 12-step.
You don't have to go to 12-step.
Yeah.
I'm just saying recovery. I don't have to be 12. I don't care if you go to 12-step.
No.
I mean, are you interested in abstinence at all?
Definitely. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're going to, I'm saying no margaritas.
No margaritas.
You're down.
I'm down.
So what's the plan?
The plan is to get a job, go back to work.
Work
and
45 hours a week, kill yourself, get off the boat next February.
84 hours a week.
Get out the boat next February, boof, clench, absorb, repeat.
Man, it's like you know me.
I know. I've known you for a long time.
Holy shit.
I've known you for a long time. I challenge you, Jeremy Turner,
Okay.
to add some self-care, some good shit to your week so that you don't run yourself ragged for a year and then go out. And I think if you give yourself some good times, some, not the boofing absorption good times,
Right.
but like just fucking sober times, talking to people, connecting. I sound like a fucking...
Well, that life does give you peace of mind. I agree. Look, man, nobody... I had peace of mind before this little rip, and now that's been taken away from me. Although it's a medium light relapse, my financial state isn't as good as it was.
It's just not as robust as it was.
No, and I was doing great. I was a few months ahead on bills. I mean, I wasn't panicking. I mean, I'm not really panicking now. And I'll be honest, this time I kind of used some of the things I learned in 12-step as far as like overthinking, not panicking, realizing everything's if I do the right thing, that things will go well for me. So this has been a less stressful relapse. I'm not saying I want to do it again because I don't.
Let me ask you this. You've listened to the show a long time.
Right.
Do you think it's weird that I'm still uncomfortable with adding recovery to the show?
No, I don't think so.
Do you understand where I'm coming from?
I understand completely.
When I go to a meeting this morning and I'm talking about how 12 steps saved my life and how uncomfortable it makes me, it's like it is when I do the good shit that I try to do, and I work hard at it on a daily basis to protect myself and to keep myself as happy, joyous, and free as possible, to have choices, to have peace, to have fun, and it works. So I'm going to offer you that as your friend.
Yes.
And just say, don't do it. You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's a fucking easy road to an easier life.
Definitely.
That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
But I feel like a jerk. I feel like you're a fucking Mormon.
Not at all.
You're looking at me like I'm a fucking
No,
Mormon.
I'm not.
After all these
I am
years,
not.
you give me that Mormon stare. All you're thinking about is absorption right now.
No,
All
I'm
right.
not thinking that at all.
Jeremy, I'm so glad that you could pop on our Margaret Cho Kratom Boofing special.
Yes.
And don't be a fucking stranger.
I won't.
Don't be a fucking stranger,
I'm trying
Jeremy
to catch
Turner.
up on episodes
JT,
right now.
JT, don't be a stranger.
I won't be a
Who
stranger.
calls you JT?
Who does? I don't know. Is that you?
No, I don't know. I just started it.
Some people.
Nobody calls you JT?
Depends.
All right, there we go.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeremy.
All right. Thank you.
And Jeremy is a serious drug addict. He's also a serious boofer, and him on the show, you know, it just warms my heart. And B Getz is always in New Orleans for Jazz Fest. So to have Mr. B Getz of the Upful Life podcast. See, B was listening to the show and he was like, Dave, you talk all this negative stuff about Kratom. I want to talk about positive Kratom stuff. So here is B with the other side of the Kratom coin. And again, you can check out B's incredible work at Upful Life Podcast. It's available at you can check it out wherever you get your podcasts, but it's also at www.upfullife.com. So here's B. I hope you guys are doing great. Wish me luck at Jazz Fest. And there we go. So this is a very exciting Dopey episode because we're in New Orleans. We had the great Jeremy Turner, and now we have another, Dopey legend, Dopey mainstay, Dopey OG, the one and only B Getz. And it's so cool that I get to travel places and you get to go there. We get to go there together.
It's truly incredible, amazing. I was over the moon when I found out that you were going to be here. And yeah, like just stars aligning, like Park City style, Redux, only that was my first time in Park City. And this is my home away from home. It's my 19th Jazz Fest since 2000. And I like to think that I'm a good, tour guide, if you will, for an outsider.
Definitely. And you're also just plugged in to the culture. You're a New Orleans culture maven, if you will.
More the music and the sort of merrymaking than the food. I do love the food here, but I ask advice to this day, where to go, what's the spots. I have my faves, of course, but food, I'm still kind of, that's why, when my wife is here with me, she handles the food side of things, and I get us into the shows and such. So I'm out with, solo this year. Unfortunately, my other half couldn't make it. So I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants, and that's why it's so special to have folks like you around to spend time with and to, embrace this incredible city. I think people have a perception of New Orleans kind of framed by Mardi Gras and Bourbon Street and like tits and beads and beers, big ass beers, all that. And that's like such a minute part of the city, yet it seems to be what the average American thinks of when they think of New Orleans. So you're going to experience something markedly different.
Well, it's funny because I went to this meeting this morning, this 4-person meeting, and I said, oh, it's my first meeting in New Orleans. And they're like, oh, where are you from? And I'm like, New York. And the guy says, well, we've got crime and poverty here too. And it's like, crime and poverty is not, it shouldn't be what New York is known for, but just like you described with New Orleans. And I got annoyed, and I was like, and I didn't follow him up with anything except I was just like,
but that guy, I'm guessing from the voice and the comment, was older.
Yeah.
So he's thinking like Ed Koch, like Summer of Sam, like the New York of yesteryear, which, right up into like Times Square and into the 80s was pretty gnarly. So if that's his frame of reference, then that's probably why he said that.
Well, I think it's similar to your saying people's perception of New Orleans. It's a perception. And I've been here. I was here before. I never was here for Mardi Gras. I never saw real debauchery here. I saw a lot of drinking, but I've been here for 2 days and I haven't seen any. But of course, I'm totally sober. I'm going to 12-step meetings. I'm going to fucking Sober Fest today. We were talking, B and I had a delightful taco lunch, and B was telling me how you've had so many different experiences around New Orleans in your using and your recovery. So you want to like lay it down before we get to have you ever put kratom up your butt, by the way?
I've never boofed anything.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Now, do you think it's possible to put kratom up your butt? Of course it's possible. Do you think you can get high from it up your butt?
I would imagine so. I mean, I guess word is that the membranes there are super like a super highway to getting high. But
Jeremy Turner says boofing beats shooting.
yeah, see, that's a whole nother world that I just never got to.
He says you clench and absorb like zeroing a bong hit. That's how long you have to hold it up your butt with the clench.
What's funny that you bring up bong hits is my dear friend Maria. She bought the URL www.cannaboof.com like 10, 12 years ago, thinking that, boofing cannabis was going to be a revolution and she wanted to get ahead of it. But unfortunately, that trend never really caught on.
No. In this episode of the show, Margaret Cho says that her one reservation is THC lube so that she can have anal sex, but first she gets high on the THC. That sounds like cannaboofing to me.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to actually forward that info over to Maria.
Definitely.
Hopefully she still holds the URL because I think there's a lot of potential there.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
So let's explore the years of Begats in New Orleans.
Okay. Man, so it's 19 years since the year 2000. The reason I came here the first time...
It's 23 years since the year 2000.
My 19th Jazz Fest.
I apologize. I was trying to do math.
And it's all relative, actually, because the years that I missed, obviously pandemic aside, was 06 and 07 that my addiction had gotten so dark and depraved that I could not even make it to Jazz Fest. So those 2 years, and then 2015 Jazz Fest, I was incarcerated, which was relative to using. And so... it's woven into my experiences here, but I came here in 2000. I was a big Fish fan at the time, and a Trey from Fish and Stuart Copeland from the Police and Les Claypool from
Oysterhead.
Yeah, super group called Oysterhead. So this was their very first show. They announced it. I was going to college in Vermont, and I said to myself, Self, you got to be there. Par for the course for the times, I made a bunch of soundboard compact disc copies, like 20 shows.
Real quick, though, do you think that they called themselves Oysterhead because of the marine relation to fish? Or there's no connection there?
I have no idea. There's a character called Mr. Oysterhead, and they have a song about him.
But do you think it's related to the fish under the sea vibe?
I don't, but I could be mistaken.
Anyway,
it could have flown over my head, and I missed that, and everyone else got it.
I don't know. I apologize for even asking you that question.
No apologies, man. I love the interjections. That's what makes Dopey. It's just like a ping pong, volleying it back and forth. But the short version is that concert was happening. I was in Vermont, didn't have a ton of money. Figured out someone would trade me tickets if I made them a bunch of shows on CD and ship them. Plus, they, charged up a little bit. But anyway, I found myself here in 2000 as a 22-year-old. And that wasn't even like the fifth best concert I saw that week. And I realized it felt like the promised land. You hear people refer to it as the promised land. It's like an experience like no other, like the Masters, if you will. And I just got hooked on the culture, the experience, the round-the-clock music. See, back then, it wasn't commonplace to have these shows that went till sunrise, except here during Jazz Fest. And that now it's like a cottage industry, but back then it was,
What shows were till sunrise?
Carl Denson, Galactic, Soul Live, even like the Radiators, George Porter will go.
They would all play all night.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Especially late 90s and early 2000s. And now there's late night shows till 5, 6, 7 a.m. all over town. But back then it was few and
Is
further
everyone
between.
on coke and ecstasy and acid? I mean, how do you stay?
I don't think
how do they all
everyone is.
stay up all night?
I mean,
They're not drinking coffee.
I mean, dude, I am.
Kratom? What is it?
I think mostly back then was probably a lot of blow and acid. Now Adderall is a big crutch,
Right.
And the beauty about Adderall is you only need to have a little bit and it just keeps you awake all night. And then, it's none of the high from cocaine, none of the come down from cocaine. I'm not necessarily advocating or not advocating for Adderall.
It's just straight amphetamines.
It's just effective. If you want to see music till 8 a.m, if you have a little Adderall, you'll make it.
Okay.
So that's, you asked how is it done? I think that's the most efficient with the least carnage.
Right. And everybody out there, if you're in recovery, be mindful of Adderall, but you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put a caveat on the...
I'm not here to advocate, even though I'm going to talk about my Kratom experiences, I'm not here to advocate for using
any
anything.
drug take. Of course.
Not
You're
even
telling
just
your
for dopey in
experience.
general. It's just, that's not what I'm about. But I'm going to be frank with you about my experiences here, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I've had it all. So when I first came down here, I had just like a taste for Percocets and Lortabs and Vicodins, and I enjoyed them, but was years away from regular using. And then each year I got more and more deep into it. So by 2004, 2005, Jazz Fest, like I needed to have an arsenal of OxyContin to come to Fest, which got increasingly more expensive over the years, where it got to the point it was like $1.50, even $2 a milligram before they wiped out the 80s. So in those years, a huge part of my budget to come to Fest was I'd have to stock up on a week or 10 days worth of pills, which inevitably didn't last.
Where would you keep them?
Like on my person?
Yeah.
Geez, we're talking so long ago. The little pocket in the jeans is great for pills.
But like when you would come here with a big mess of pills.
Oh yeah, I would just I would put them in everything from like take the deodorant stick out and put a bag of 20 on, and then put the stick back in. That was a big one. I used to do that with herb too, when I would bring small amounts of herb. Eventually I just start vacuum sealing the herb, and it's, it doesn't fit in those little crevices. But yeah, toiletry bag, little crevices, little, I like to get dressed and go out at night. Like I like to get fly. So a breast pocket of one of 12 shirts.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. I don't want to give away the game too much, but that's how I got them down here. I was never worried about getting busted traveling with pills as much as I was with weed, because in those days I had a giant head of gnarly dreadlocks. So basically, it's like wearing a sign that said, "This guy has weed," in a place like Louisiana,
where they don't want you to have weed.
Right. Well, New Orleans, anything goes. But you get anywhere outside the perimeter of the city, people's attitudes are way different.
But that's also like in the rules of the Airbnb here. It says, "Don't smoke weed. It's not legal here."
Right.
It's very, very like laid out.
But this was one of the few places back then that you could actually stand on the street and openly smoke a joint and no one would bother you in the year 2000. And that didn't happen. Now places that are rec legal, you get arrested back then for doing that. Here, it's always kind of been like, mind your own business. Don't be an idiot. Don't whip your dick out and piss in between cars. Don't put your hands on anybody that isn't yours. And, you'll probably be okay.
Right.
But with regard to Dopey and Oxy and all that stuff, the 2 years of 04 and 05, I found myself in withdrawal by like the third to last day, having to try to find pills, which, it's not like, even like, I'm not a Coke guy, but people who like Coke, you can ask someone, "Hey man, got a bump," whatever, right? It's kind of like normalized, for better or worse. And pills are not, and certainly heroin, which wasn't my thing, but same, right? You can't just lean over to your buddy.
Well,
you're admitting, you're acknowledging
that you have a serious problem.
Correct.
My big line was, "I don't want to freak you out, but do you know where I can get some heroin?" Because you knew it would freak them out, and you're putting it on the table because there's nothing else you can do.
It's a numbers game. You ask enough people, one person gets it.
Yeah, someone's gonna have it. You like you said, that the dread guy is gonna either have weed or know where to get it, and if you're a junkie or an opiate addict or a heroin addict, if you see 20 people, you're gonna be able to find it eventually. Right. So when you're in withdrawal, do you remember where you came up with it, how it worked?
Yeah, I didn't always, but there were, I'm from Philly area. And so my frame of reference would be corners, right? I always knew what corners had pills. It's not the story down here. There's not drug corners. There's trap houses. You got to know which house is the house. So a few times, people who understood the depth of my depravity procured me this or that. It was never Oxy, but it might have been like a handful of Vicodins.
Sure.
Whatever. A few times I just had to tough it out. But here's the thing, because of the nature of what I do, like even back then I was writing for Jambase, which is a major website. And over the years became like I was almost here on behalf, because my story would run about all the shows I saw. And that's kind of how I built my whole career, if you want to call it that. Whatever it is I do, writing about music.
You can call it a career.
Was born here, though. Was coming to Jazz Fest, running around town, seeing as much music as I could, and then writing an article about it. And now it's like people look forward to it. But back then it was just my way to get into a bunch of concerts for free or for as little as possible, right? So understand that if I'm exposing my addiction, it's not just like about
it can put you at risk.
Yeah, well, it's a bad look on a macro scale too. So I do think by 2005, like a lot of people knew I was a junkie here. But again, we're in New Orleans where, people get fucked up. So also there was a lack of judgment. I just think people knew. They'd seen me in the throes of withdrawal, and they'd also, you could see when I'm good, I'm pretty fucking good. And then when I'm not, it's
bad.
Clear as day.
Yeah.
So, like I said, by 06, 07, it was twofold. They had the Katrina storm here. So Jazz Fest, the first Jazz Fest after that was, kind of like they brick by brick did. It was not easy for them to put together. It was not the full Monty, obviously. And there was a lot of trauma and pain. And that coupled with the fact that my, OxyContin addiction had ballooned by 06 was like, hundreds and hundreds of milligrams a day, 400 or 500 milligrams a day. 580s, 680s. So I was not able to be gone for that long. And then also, my writing had suffered, my life had suffered. So
how did you sort out the Jazz Fest that year when the habit was so big?
The years I didn't go?
Oh, you just didn't go?
Yeah, I didn't
because your
go.
habit was too big to go.
Correct.
Right.
Oh, it had gotten to the point where in 06, 07, I could not come to Fest. Almost twofold, addiction and financial, and they were intertwined.
Of course.
Right? So, but by 08, I had moved to Florida, gotten on Suboxone. I was like selling furniture, living in this podunk town. That's how I ended up in Florida in the first place. And established an extended period of abstinence with the assistance of Suboxone. And I think I told you the story earlier, but my mom, who had read all my articles over the years and also seen me circling the drain with the drugs, she's like, hey, you got your shit together. You're going back to Jazz Fest. I'll meet you there. So she hasn't missed one with me since, and that's 2008. So I had some good years.
Which is a very beautiful thing.
It's the best.
Because you connect with your mom on the thing that you love, and she's very proud, and it's very beautiful.
It is. That's exactly what it is. It's a lovely feeling to take her around places and to get recognized for what I do in front of her, for people to say nice things about my work to her. It's prideful for both of us, especially given the carnage.
The history, sure.
Right. And also, like you've talked about on the show, and I've acknowledged, like there's some trail of fire with my relationship with my mom over the years, with the using and the lying and the fucking up and constant, mother-son thing, Jewish mom, all that, right? So there's a lot of that wrapped up in that we've been able to heal and sort through while we're here. You know what I mean? Anyway, to bring it full circle, I had some good years. And then once I moved to California and started making big bucks in the weed game, I thought I could get high again. And I slowly fell down the well again.
And were you coming here then?
Yeah. So I would say 2012, 2013, 2014, I didn't actually, I take that back. 2012, I had a withdrawal freak out with my then girlfriend, who saw a really ugly side of me that she was less than familiar with. And then 13 and 14,
Did you score when you went into withdrawal, or did you not get it?
I did. Yeah.
Isn't that the best?
Somebody brought me something that held me over a little bit, but you gotta understand, when you're stretching.
Did they fly in? Like, how did they work it out?
Somebody heard I needed XYZ and helped me out. You gotta understand, like, I was not an anomaly having a pill problem in 2012 or 2005. Like,
of course.
It was everywhere.
No,
So,
I just like those stories because I know what it is to be on E, to be on empty. And then when you get it,
I told you that story on the Patreon about getting that package when I was on the weed farm that one year, which ended up, I got so high I got kicked off. So, like, it can be a gift and a curse. But
it's the greatest thing for an opiate addict to be sick and get better.
Right.
There's nothing better. And I don't think there's anything anyone can experience as good as an opiate addict in withdrawal and then someone hooking them up and they get better. Like, it's like a video game. It's like you're dying and you eat that thing and you're full power. It's amazing. Like, I really think there's nothing like that in life.
Agreed.
And I have children and love and stuff.
Well,
I'm just saying.
I would say agreed in terms of, like, the pendulum swinging
it's
back.
Incredible.
The depths of despair to the wellness. Yeah.
I feel like half of Dopey is just about that phenomenon. like to be at your worst and then just get it. And it's that science fiction, the science fiction element of needing this thing to make you well. It's crazy. It's
That's
crazy.
also the story of addiction, especially opiate addiction, is that line of staying well, letting yourself fall off, whether you can help it or not being able to score, going to the withdrawals, getting well, rinse, repeat. That yo-yo, that hamster wheel, I should say, is the story of addiction, and it gets really exhausting, and the highs get less high, and the withdrawals get worse and more excruciating and
more common because you can't possibly hang out.
And then eventually, you can't keep up financially. You can't keep up appearances with
and
people
your tolerance is so big that you can't. It undoes everything.
Exactly.
So what was
in 2014, 2013, 2014, I was killing the game. I had a lot of money.
Did you have a walking stick? Were you like one of these dreads with a suit and a walking stick?
No, I didn't
Did
have
you
dreads anymore
minions?
by 2014.
Were you like, yo, go? It wasn't like that.
I don't snap my fingers at people, Dave.
Well, I mean, you were at the top of the weed game.
I was not at the top. I just was doing, compared to the guy who could not afford to go to Jazz Fest in 06, 07, by 2013, 2014, I could afford to take other people. I was just saying, like, I was doing really well.
Did you ever consider having a walking stick, though? That's ever
Dr. John's thing, man?
Okay,
certainly not in this town.
I think I would perpetrate. I think I wouldn't mind having a maybe I just need to get hurt and then I could have a cane.
Yeah, I mean, if it's injury, it's one thing. If it's for steez, that's swagger jacking Dr. John in New Orleans. That's like that's a capital offense.
That's perpetrating on a grand scale.
Yeah, can't do that. But back to the lecture at hand with the doing well for myself came lots of ego and lots of fucking, I'm the coolest guy in the fucking school, right? And I got knocked down real hard, went to jail for a year. And that's actually what finally, put the kibosh on my opiate addiction, even though, as we know, I did use one more time when I got out the day Prince died. And I just got to 7 years with no opiates of any kind. The other day, on the anniversary of Prince's death on 4/21. So the last, 2016, missed 15 because of jail. So 16, 17, 18, 19, 22, because they didn't have fest for 20 and 21 because of the pandemic. And now this, I have not been using any pharmaceutical opiates, but I have been benefiting from the assistance of Kratom, which is why we're having
When did you start taking Kratom?
Shortly after I got, regularly, like when I got out of jail.
But like you weren't going to do opiates. Who hipped you to Kratom?
A few different people told me about it over the years. And I had actually tried it a time or three before I got in trouble and went to jail. I was aware of it. I also was living in Nevada City, Grass Valley, real like sort of spiritual hippie, a lot of herbalists, a lot of Ayurvedic medicine. So the culture there was very conducive to like herbal remedy just in general. And with that came there are bars where you can belly up to the bar and order like a Kratom beverage. They're I would say commonplace in California.
I think Margaret Cho talked about that too.
But for me, I just got hip to it and was like, hey, if you want to get high, do this, And
how effective is Kratom? Like,
I mean, I've never had 7 consecutive years of not using pills.
I mean, how effective is Kratom? Just in terms of like a get high, like at the bar kind of thing.
If you're not a regular consumer, it's very effective.
And initially,
they only put a gram or so in your 12-ounce beverage.
Does it make you feel high or does it make you feel low? Like,
I think it's in the eye of the beholder.
What's the threshold when it goes from opiate to upper or whatever?
It's all in the person. I find that
such a magical substance.
It's hard to figure out, and I know what works for me, but the rule of thumb is like the small dose is the upper, and the bigger dose is the more dopier one.
And we've talked about on the show, Jeremy talked about needing to kick Kratom, and Margaret talked about that was her last hurrah before she went in and into treatment and into sobriety. And we talked about, Margaret and I, about how Kratom, it can be treated like a maintenance drug for opiates. And I always thought that was your story with it.
It is.
So
it is.
Speak on it. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, I don't go to it to get high. It performs a similar function in my life to that of, some people were on Suboxone or before that, methadone or whatever, but it's devoid of the pharmacology and this whole like all the bureaucracy involved with obtaining that. This is a much more direct personal relationship, but there's no quality control in terms of product. There's a lot of...
They sell it at the gas station.
Yeah, I don't buy it at the gas station, but yes, they do. And that's the quality of that product is probably commensurate with
the gas station's quality.
Gas station. Yeah, well, the fact that
I bet you can buy the dank at that gas station.
I'm sure
right now.
You can, but you never know. When you say the dank, it's like, who knows what the fuck is in it? Like...
No, I mean, I bet you they have killer bud at the same gas station where I live.
Probably. But for me, there was a short period of time. Well, I want to preface this with saying that, I've been listening to some of the testimonials on Dopey of late relative to Kratom, which is why when you were like, hey, does anyone want to speak positive about Kratom? I'm like, I do. Not because I think anyone out there should pick it up or do it, only because we only seem to get like negative or horror stories, which obviously is a fact. It happens. But my personal lived experience, you only know me during the Kratom era, right? And I'm not perfect and my life is fucked up. But, I'm not, you told me earlier, not unmanageable, married, got like, there's no devoid of a sexual spark or intimacy. I am very invested in my
Is
work.
that a thing that Kratom stifles?
Well, I
that?
hear people talk about the fact that it makes them like not
as sexual.
Yeah, or not in intimacy or closed off, or you hear lots of people. But one cat on your show, and I'm going to specify who does what, but when they talk about 60 or 80 grams daily intake, that's 10, 12, 15 times the amount I take. At my worst, which was the summer of 2017, when I really didn't have a handle on it yet, on what it was and how it was going to work for me, I got near like 20 grams a day, 22. I might have taken an ounce, 28 grams once. The concept of having a 60 or 80 gram a day habit is beyond my comprehension. So, and I'm not hating because I've been there with the oxys.
Everybody always has.
I wanted to come on the show and say, it's not always like that. Me, I've been taking 8 to 12 grams for a long time, and I have a very rewarding, functional life. That said, I'd like to get off it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, we were just talking about this. Why? I mean, like, B is my friend, and I consider you to be in recovery through harm reduction. You are a fucked up opiate addict, and you're practicing harm reduction, and you're recovering from your opiate addiction.
Shout out Axel. Axel gave me that gift of explaining what you just said to me at a time when I was really struggling to figure out what the fuck my journey was.
Abstinence isn't everybody's thing. I love my abstinence. It gives me incredible amounts of freedom. And, we had a Zoom the other day, and there was a woman who was talking about she was struggling if she was an alcoholic or not. And she was also struggling that she spoke to her sponsor, and her sponsor said, well, do you want to ride the frisky horse that's unpredictable, or do you want to ride the steady, chill, boring horse? And I said, my frisky horse is sobriety, because the boring horse is the one that I know what the outcome of my using is. And I it was the first time I think I said that with sincerity, because I don't know what my day is going to be like. I don't know what's going to happen. There's potential, and I like it. I'm not saying everyone needs to be abstinent. I'm interested in, why do you think you want to get off the Kratom?
There's a lot of layers to it. Some are pretty simple, which is like, I don't necessarily want to be beholden to any substance. Right. And I worked hard to free myself from the opiate addiction prison. Right. And also, I smoke weed a lot, so there's that too. And, there was a certain clarity that came with incarceration and total abstinence that it wasn't by choice. And I'm not sure that I would have got there without it. But I also look at jail as like saving my life, because I was starting to like buy blues in the Tenderloin right before I got arrested. And we see how the blues turned into the fent, and the hand-to-hands there. It was just a matter of time before I had a real tragic ending. Right? No, it's just the way I operated and the way I copped. It would be Russian roulette, right? So by going to jail and having that year of abstinence and meeting myself again allowed me to like envision and then step into a life without opiates. And now I have this crutch that I've used, a walking stick, if you will, for many years.
A walking stick made of Kratom.
Correct. And it served me well. And so far, knock on wood, has not turned on me like we hear it can turn on others. And maybe part of me says, quit while you're ahead.
Yeah, sure.
And the other part of me says, hey, like, I got married not long ago in November, and my partner, who liked to party, has, made changes in her life. And like, there's now, it used to be kind of like we go out on the town together. Now we go out on the town together, and I tie one on a little harder than her sometimes. And that, like, there's just I seek something deeper in our partnership that I feel like Kratom and excessive cannabis is creating a layer. We've never even had an argument, like, which is crazy, right? I've never had cross words with my partner. Never raised.
I've
voice.
never fought with my partner. Are you kidding me? We've never had
No,
an
I'm just
argument.
saying, and I understand that that's not a lot of people's reality, and I'm not bragging. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
even the fact that we get along so swimmingly and she's so supportive and we love each other unconditionally, I want to remove the like layers of numbness so that I can feel like she feels. I want to be on even keel with her, and she's not pressuring me to do this at all. She just said, hey, it'd be cool if you like got some clarity, you know? So you and I have talked about it. She and I have talked about it. I don't like the ball and chain factor of either. So, you know, I'm putting it out. I'm not saying setting a date or whatever. I'm just saying like I want to work towards an extended period of clarity, whatever that means. That's just cannabis gummies and then nothing. If that's tapering off kratom, if that's just a sweeping kick and 2 weeks of misery, who knows? But 7 years, I feel like it has served me and I owe it to myself to try. There's more kratom, right? If I find myself going into frantic, I want to get high mode.
It's there.
It's there.
Same with bud. Same with
So-
everything. It's all out there.
And especially in California, it's out there without the sort of looming draconian legal thing. And that's another thing I wanted to point out when you say about kratom is one of the things that sucks about addiction with opiates especially is like the legal ramifications, right? So the cool thing about kratom is there's none of that, right? It's like I have a few grams a couple times a day and I go about my life. There's no worry about getting busted, cops, DUIs, none of that stuff that looms with active using is not present in kratom. And that
makes it also makes it harder to be done.
Correct.
Because you don't have that
How long have I
consequences.
been telling you, hey, man, I kind of want to get off this shit, right? A
For
couple
as
years
long,
now.
I think for as long as we've talked intimately,
Right.
you know,
So
you've
it's
shared
not a
that.
new idea. I just feel like it's more attainable for me where I'm at in my life now than it ever has been. And we've got, you know, Park City coming up. And I'd love to like maybe like get more out of that experience because I'm in the midst of something like that.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. You can do it's you can do whatever you want.
But I feel like Dopey Nation's going to be disappointed if I come on the show in 4 months and I'm still on kratom, still smoking weed all the time.
No, it's everybody has their fucking path. And like, don't, you know, half Dopey Nation's fucking high on something anyway. Dopey Nation, write an email. Are you high on something? Are you on kratom? Do you support B Getz if he's still smoking weed then? Or will you not smoke or support B Getz? Don't worry about them. You do you, and I know you don't. And I know
I don't worry about them, but I also, you know, I'm coming on the show and I'm
Listen,
talking frankly.
but that's all that counts. You know what I'm saying?
I just want to put the intention out there. Like I'm not, because I don't want to let myself down or other people down with saying on this date or by then, but I'm just.
Okay, so we're going to pencil it in.
No,
By
okay.
September 7th, you're going to be down to 1 gram of kratom and just 2 bong hits at night.
You said it, I didn't.
Okay.
I'm not making promises. I'm setting an intention because I find that if I speak things aloud, like with Rising App last year at Park City,
sure.
I can manifest them. If I set the intention and I go about it with, you know, integrity and grace and humbleness and not trying to be the fucking coolest guy in school, but just trying to like be, then things manifest.
Would you say you're trying to be Getz?
You would say that.
I would.
I should
Listen.
follow up with something dopey, Dave, but I'm not gonna.
What? There's nothing wrong. What? There's nothing wrong with saying that. What I used to say, I had
Begats.
no, but I would say something. B gets what B wants.
Right.
That
Well,
was a
that's
good.
a
Or B
sandbox.
wants
Yeah.
what B gets.
I've been getting that since the nursery school sandbox. Whatever B wants, B gets.
Before we go, this just in your hometown of Kensington, they found a poodle that overdosed on fentanyl. They Narcaned this poodle. The poodle's name was Toodles.
Get the fuck out of here.
Shocking.
Dude.
Is there any way that
I
this...
mean, is this like real?
Dude, it's all over the fucking internet. I'll send you a link.
Poodle named Toodles got Narcaned in Kensington. Honestly, it's like Cocaine Bear said, "Hold my beer."
That's what I'm saying. The question is, that's true. It's in the Guardian. It's all over.
We are a sick, demented people.
That's
society.
not the question. The question is there any way that this poodle's owner was not a Dopey fan? Is that possible?
I think it's 50-50.
50-50.
Yeah, because poodle Toodles, it fucking
because it rhymes. Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, but then again, like a fucking junkie dog named Toodles. I mean, what are the chances? Kensington.
Well, it's a poodle named Toodles. Though.
Ask Tina.
Listen, if you
Ask
have,
Tina, she knows.
if anyone in the Philadelphia area has any intel on this poodle named Toodles, please send an email to dopeypodcast@gmail.com. Begets another stellar showing on the show, and we're behind you. Whatever you want to do, we're behind you, because my recovery doesn't, it's not what you do doesn't. It's my recovery,
right?
And you got to do what you want to do. And but I support you, and if you need help, we're always here.
You are always there. You've been helpful, not just to me, but people dear to me. And I don't want to say that. I'm not going to name names, but there are people in the Dopey Nation that have stepped up to help my kin. And
let's give one shout out to Justin Cambria, because he likes
shout out
outs.
Justin. I love Justin, man. We had a good powwow the other day on the phone, and is a great guy. And him and his people do good work, and you're so grateful. But relative to me and my relationship with Dopey and with you in general, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't know where I'd be without it. It's helped me understand my affliction, the affliction of people dear to me, the afflictions of like heroes in music, that, all of it. And also just the humanity. Like today, my man Jeremy Turner, who I have a long-standing friendship with, never met him in person, but we go back, and I got a lot of love for him. And there's numerous people in the Dopey Nation that have availed themselves to me personally, right? And that, no matter what stage of my journey I'm in, like I'm a better person for being in the mix with the Dopey Nation, coming on the Zoom, Patreon Zooms, or our relationship, etc. So I just want to make it clear that I don't think I'd be where I'm at right now with my addiction, with my understanding of myself, with the way I move through the lives of others who are dealing with addiction. Like all of that knowledge and wisdom and perspective is probably the best word. A sizable portion is soaked up from Dopey affiliated experiences, and you can't put a price tag on that. It's invaluable. So this is my deep bow of gratitude to Dave and the whole Dopey Nation, because I'm a better human because of Dopey.
Wow. See, I think we need to do something with that quote. And with that, we will say we're leaving New Orleans. Thank you, B. Stay strong, Dopey Nation, and fucking Toodles for Chris.
Love y'all. Me not say Toodles.
What's up, Dave and Chris? My name's Jake. I'm 25 years old from West Virginia. I just found Dopey about 2 weeks ago, and it's my favorite podcast of all time. Y'all are hilarious, and it's just gotten me through some really hard times. And though I'm not clean myself, it gives me a lot of hope for the future. I really like Dave's song, and I'm going to do a little cover of it here on my banjo. Hope y'all don't mind too much. I wrote a third verse myself. Sorry about the poor quality. It's just on my phone. And, sorry about the banjos. Things hard to keep in tune. Wanna take a walk around the world. Wonder would it do me any good. Till I get some honey in my pockets, and I guess I'll just have to walk around my neighborhood. I wanna be good so bad. Wanna be so good, so bad, so bad. I wanna be good so bad. Bad desire's all I ever had. Wanna take a ride up in the sky. Watch as airplanes just pass me by. And I wanna see a Lear jetliner take a dive, just to show all of these people what it means to be alive. I wanna be good so bad. I wanna be so good, so bad, so bad. I wanna be good so bad. Bad desire's all I ever had. In my burned out basement listening to the Dopey Show. The home friends I had are on this little radio. I keep checking on my pulse because it feels like I might die. But the thought of straightening up sounds so much better when you're high. And I wanna be good so bad. I wanna be so good, so bad, so bad. I wanna be good so bad. Bad desire's all I ever had.